With Easter just around the corner, there's no better time to crochet yourself one of these adorable bunnies. In today's quick, simple but effective tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make one of these bunnies for free. And all I ask in return is that you hit that subscribe and like button so more people can see these videos. You can make these bunnies in all different colours and varieties. So without further ado, get your wool out and let's start crocheting. And here is a closer look at the bunny we're going to be making today. To make this bunny, you're going to need 4 colours, which you can customise for your own project. I'm going to be making this bunny with a pale brown body, a dark brown nose, black eyes, and a white fluffy tail. You will also need some stuffing, a 3.5mm crochet hook, and a pair of scissors. To start our bunny off, you're going to get the colour you're using for the body of the bunny. So for this chocolate brown part, I'm going to be using pale brown wool this time. Find the end of the wool and do a slip knot. Pull that tight on the crochet hook, and now we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to do 8 single crochets into the first chain. This should leave you with 8 stitches all in a circle. Next, we're going to increase every stitch, so that's 6 increased stitches. To do an increase, you insert your hook into the stitch, and you just do 1 normal single crochet, but instead of moving into the next stitch, you do another single crochet in that same hole. This results in you being left with 2 stitches instead of 1. So we're going to repeat that 7 more times. And this will leave you with 16 stitches around the circle. Now we're going to do 3 single crochet rows. At this point, I'm going to get a little bit of string to use as a marker. So getting my black wool, I'm going to find the end, which can be a challenge sometimes. There it is. And I'm going to cut a piece of wool about the length of my hand. Doesn't have to be very long. I'm just going to tuck this in between the crochet and then pull the string above it. That's just going to sit there to mark where the row begins. Now I'm going to start single crocheting. By using a piece of wool as a marker, it means you don't have to count the stitches. Every time you come back round to the piece of wool, you know you've done a full row. And just to remind you, we're doing 3 single crochet rows. Once you reach the string again, take the front piece and tuck it around to the back. Then just crochet over it as if it's not there. And we're now at the end of our second row. So we're now going to bring the marker string from the back and pull it back round to the front to complete our last single crochet row. And we have come to the end of our 3 rows. Now, using your finger, push up from the bottom to turn the crochet inside out. This will leave the neat side facing outwards. You should still have 16 stitches around your circle. We're going to do 5 single crochets. So at the beginning of the row, bring the marker ball back and then do 5 single crochets. Now we're going to do a quadruple increase stitch, meaning we're going to do 4 single crochets into the next stitch. So that's 1 single crochet, and then back into the same hole, we're going to do 3 more. Now we're going to do 4 single crochets. And we're going to do another quadruple increase into the next stitch. So that's 4 single crochets into the next stitch. And you're now going to do another 5 single crochets. That'll bring you back to the beginning of the row. So bring that marker wool forward again, and now we're going to complete 2 single crochet rows. And we have now completed the 2 single crochet rows. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets. So bring that marker wool forward, we're going to keep that going, we're going to do 6 single crochets. We're now going to decrease 3 stitches. To decrease, you're going to insert the hook into the stitch. You're then going to pull a loop through, but instead of pulling it through, again, you're going to insert the hook into the next stitch as well, and pull another loop through. Because we're doing a triple decrease, we're going to insert the hook again into the next one, and pull a loop through. Then you pull the wool through all 3 of the loops, meaning you've turned 3 stitches into 1 stitch. We're now going to do 4 single crochets. And we're going to do another triple decrease stitch. So again, pull a loop through the first, second and third stitch, and then pull a loop through all 3. And we're going to finish by doing another 6 single crochets. Here you can see the 2 cheeks of the rabbit coming together. So now we're going to start the decrease going into the neck. After moving the marker wool through to the back, we're going to decrease every stitch, but they're just regular decreases. So to do this, you pull a loop through one and through the next one and pull the wool through both. So we're just turning 2 stitches into 1. Do that until you get back to the beginning of the row. Now we have decreased enough, we're going to stuff the head because this will become difficult later on. So, grabbing your stuffing, pull enough out to fill the head firmly. I always like to just kind of play with the stuffing, pull out the clumps to make sure it's all nice and soft. Now it's feeling pretty good. We're just going to work it through the hole at the bottom of the rabbit. At this point you can also pull out your marker thread. I took a bit too much stuffing. So, leaving what I've already pushed in, I'm going to pull the rest off and tuck it in. Now we're going to move on to the body. So after removing the marker thread, we're now going to add it back in for the body. To start off the body, we're going to increase every stitch. So just like in the last row we decreased every stitch, now we're increasing every stitch. This gives that nice notch around the neck to define the head and the body. To do this, however, we're only going to pick up half of the stitch. So instead of going through both holes of each stitch like that, see we've got 2 loops on the hook there, we're going to drop the back one and only go through the front half. we're then going to do 2 single crochets into that half stitch. So in the next stitch again, we're only going to pick up the front half of the stitch and do another increase. Keep going around until you get back to the beginning of the row. You should now have 18 stitches going around. We're going to pull the marker through into the back there to just keep that going. And now we're going to single crochet 4 stitches. We're now going to do another quadruple increase. So that means we're doing 4 single crochets into the next stitch. We're now going to single crochet 8. And do another quadruple increase. We're now going to single crochet 4. And this will bring us to the beginning of our row. You should now have 24 stitches around the circle. And now you're going to do 5 rows of single crochet. So that's 5 rows, and keep track using the marker wool. So to start, we're going to bring it forward so it's coming out the front and start our first row. And we've now completed the 5 single crochet rows. For the next row, we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase stitch, but just an increase stitch with 2 single crochets going into the stitch. We're now going to single crochet 18. Now we're going to do another increase stitch and then 2 single crochets. Now we're going to bring our marker wool back to the front and we're going to do another 5 rows.
Sometimes there's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves, there's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared are in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant to last. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on, we're moving on. I know time
And we've now completed the 5 rows. So now we're going to start decreasing for the bottom of the bunny. To do this, we're going to single crochet 3 stitches. And we're going to do a decrease stitch. We're now going to single crochet 2 more stitches and do another decrease stitch. We're now going to do 10 single crochet stitches. We're going to do a decrease stitch, followed by 2 single crochets, another decrease stitch, and we're just going to do 1 single crochet to finish that off. Now we're going to really bring it in and decrease every stitch. So, pulling our marker wool through to the back, we're going to decrease every stitch until we get back to the beginning. Now, while the hole is relatively large, we're going to stuff the body. So, exactly the same as last time, get a decent amount of stuffing. The body is larger than the head. Fluff it out a little bit. It's looking alright. And then, I'm just going to pull my loop nice and large so it doesn't unravel. And push the stuffing in. Once you're happy with the firmness of the rabbit, we're going to do another row. So putting the hook back on the loop and pulling it tight. Don't worry about the marker string anymore. We can pull that out. And now we're just going to do decrease stitches until the hole is almost closed. So that's 1 decrease stitch. It's another. Another. That's 4. 5. 6. And this will be the last decrease. You want just a few stitches left. I believe that's 5 stitches left. Cut the string with a bit left because you're just going to close that hole up. Now, with that last bit of string, insert the hook back into the same hole and do a slip stitch. Pull that nice and tight and then just work across the hole and bring the wool from one side to the other, and that'll close it up nicely. Once you're done with the wool, just pull it through into the body. And there we have the body of the rabbit complete. So now it's time to work on the arms and legs. We're going to start on the 2 feet first of all. To do this, we're going to still be using our pale brown and our 3.5mm crochet hook. We're going to tie a slip knot. And we're now going to chain 2. We're going to do 8 single crochets into the first chain. And now we're going to do 3 single crochets. So picking up that first single crochet we did on the circle, we're going to do 3 single crochets. And we're then going to do an increase stitch. So that's 2 single crochets into that same stitch. We're now going to do 3 more single crochets. And another increase stitch. This will leave you with 10 single crochets going around the circle. We're now going to do 2 rows, so that's 20 stitches. And now we've completed the 2 stitches, we're going to turn the foot inside out, so we have the nice side facing outwards. Now we're going to do 3 single crochets. And we're going to do a decrease stitch. We're going to do 3 more single crochets. And we're going to do another decrease stitch. Now, we're going to do 8 single crochets. We're going to finish off by doing a slip stitch into the next stitch. So for a slip stitch, you insert the hook into the hole and you just pull the loop through everything. Just pull the loop through everything. Now we're going to cut the wool with enough room to sew the foot onto the body. Now, if you go back to this time in the video and repeat those steps to make the second foot. And now we have 2 legs, it's time to start on the arms. For the arms, we're going to do a slip knot. And we're then going to do 2 chains. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets around the first chain. Now we're going to do 5 rows. So we have 6 stitches and we're doing 5 rows, which, if my maths is correct, that's 30 stitches. After the first row, I would recommend turning it inside out because the more rows you do, the more difficult that's going to get. And that's my first row. And we have now completed the 5 rows. We're going to cut the wool again with enough wool to sew the arm onto the body, and we're going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch. Pull the wool nice and tight, and go back to this time to rewatch that segment and make the second arm. And now we have 2 arms, it's time to move onto the ears of the bunny. To start these ears, we're going to still be using the pale brown or whatever colour you've chosen to use, and we're going to do a slip knot. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to do 6 single crochets into the first chain. We're now going to do 6 single crochet stitches. So going into the first single crochet stitch we have, we're going to do 6 single crochets. That's the equivalent of 1 row. Now we're going to turn the ear inside out so we have the nice side facing us. And we're going to start our next row with an increase. So we're going to do an increase stitch. So that's 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. We're then going to do 2 single crochets for the next 2 stitches. And we're going to do another increase stitch. And we're now going to do 2 single crochets. For the next row, we're going to do 3 single crochets. And we're going to do an increase stitch. We're now going to do 7 single crochets. Going to do 1 more single crochet, and then we're going to do an increase stitch. This should leave you with 9 stitches around the circle. We're now going to do 2 rows, so that's 18 stitches. We're now going to do 3 single crochets, and we're going to do a decrease stitch. We're going to do 3 more single crochets, and we're going to do another decrease stitch. Now we're going to do another 3 single crochets, and we're going to do a decrease stitch, and now we're just going to do 1 single crochet and a decrease stitch. You should now have 6 stitches around the circle, and we're going to do 2 rows. Once you've finished the 2 rows, we're going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch and cut the wool long enough so that we can sew the ear in afterwards. Pull the wool through the hole, tug it nice and tight, and to make the second ear, go back to this time. And now for the bunny, you should have the main body, 2 feet, 2 arms, and 2 ears. So it's time to assemble the bunny. Now you can see how this will work. We're going to sew the arms onto the sides, the feet onto the bottom, and the ears onto the top. How you do this is up to you. I'm going to talk about how I do it with a crochet hook, but if you want to use a sewing needle, then go ahead. To sew the feet on, I'm going to find the 2 cheeks of the rabbit. If you get these 2 cheeks, you want them lined up facing you. This is going to be the front of the rabbit's face. So for the feet, you want them to be pointing forward at a diagonal from that point. So inserting my hook, I'm going to go onto the front of the body, as you can see. This means when the rabbit sits down, there'll be a flat base for it to sit. Having inserted the hook, I'm going to pull the thread from the foot through, and then I'm going to go back through the foot. I'm now going to work along the base of the foot, just like you would with sewing, using the hook to pull the wool in and out. Once you've completed one foot, you can sew on the next foot. On this one I didn't leave enough wool, but I have plenty left over from the first. Now the 2 feet are sewn on, I'm just going to wrap the remaining wool around a random stitch a few times just to secure it. And I'm then going to pull these loose bits of wool into the rabbit's body. Now I'm going to do the same for the arms. So I'm going to position these on the shoulders, above where I put the feet in. And I'm going to insert the hook upwards for a few rows. I'm then going to pull the wool through, and then pull the wool through the bottom of the arm. I'm then going to work along each stitch and just make sure it's securely sewn onto the body. And now the arm is sewn on, we're going to repeat that on the other side. And now both the arms are sewn on, I'm going to thread one piece of wool through to the other side. I'm just going to tie these together because that will secure them. And I'm going to trim and pull that wool into the body. Now it's time to sew the ears on. And very similarly to the arms, I'm going to find out where I want to sew it on. I'm then going to insert the hook from one side to the other side and pull the wool through. And then I'll work through each stitch to make sure it's properly fastened. And it's time to sew the second ear on, following the same procedure. Once the ears are sewn in, trim the remaining wool and pull it into the body. Now, to make the face shape really defined, we're going to get another strand of wool, cut it with a decent amount of length, and we're then going to insert the hook into the side of the face where you envisage the eye of your rabbit going. On this one, you can see the eye is here. I'm going to insert my hook just here, underneath the ear. I'm then going to push the hook through the face and bring it out in the same spot on the other side. We're going to pull the wool through those holes we just made and go down one row. And we're going to pull the wool back through, but it's going to be one row lower, meaning it catches on both sides of the rabbit's face. We're going to pull this tight, and then we're going to tie a few knots on the other side. You can see as I pull it, it's pulling through a dent in the other side of the face. and then as you tie the knot, it pulls that back through on the same side of the face. I'm going to tie 3 knots just to make sure it doesn't come undone. We're going to cut the wool, and we're going to pull that into the head. After doing that, the rabbit's face shape will be perfect. Once we add eyes and a nose, the rabbit will look very cute. To do this, we're going to get the nose colour. So this is the first time we're changing colour finally. I'm going to be making mine have a dark brown nose. I'm going to insert the hook into where I put the eye, come a few rows forward, and put it on the end. I'm then going to go about 3 or 4 stitches across. I'm going to pull the wool through, and then I'm going to wrap it around those same holes about 3 times. Now you can leave the nose at that, but I am going to make it slightly larger. To do this, we're going to pull more of this brown wool and cut it free from the ball of wool. Now, from this end, I'm going to insert my hook underneath those 3 loops we just made, and I'm going to pull that wool behind it through to the top. And I'm then going to continue wrapping that wool around these 3 loops until I get to the other end. This is going to make the nose much more prominent and a little bit thicker. Once you get to the other end, it's your choice if you choose to wrap it more. I'm going to move the wool back to the middle and wrap it a few more times in the middle to give the middle of the nose a bit more thickness. Now to make the mouth, I'm going to insert my hook 2 rows beneath the nose. So here is row 1 and here is row 2. So I'm going to insert it in the middle, 2 rows below. I'm then going to bring the hook up and out from behind the nose and get that wool I was wrapping it around and pull it down to the bottom. I'm then going to loop that wool up underneath the nose again. I'm then going to loop that wool back up underneath the nose. Now from here, you can do a downward curve to the mouth, or you can do an outward. You could also do an upwards if you wished. I'm going to do an outwards. To do this, you simply wrap the wool around 1 stitch to either side of the bottom of the bit you just did. Now we're going to cut the wool and pull it into the head and body. Now we simply have to add eyes and the face will be complete. So remember that marker wool I used earlier? This is the small bit of black wool I used for marking. If you didn't use a black wool, then you can go and cut another length of black wool. We're going to insert this into the same place we inserted the wool earlier to make the dents in the face. On either side, we're just going to wrap that wool around the stitch. If you choose to use buttons or beads as the eyes, then you'll sew these in as you would a button or a bead. Once you're happy with the eyes, we're just going to pull that wool into the body. Now it is time for the tail, the final piece of our bunny rabbit. For this tail, we're going to make a pom-pom. If you have a pom-pom already, you can simply sew it to the back. I'm also going to show you how to make one out of this white wool and our fingers. To do this, you're going to need a nice lot of white wool. You're going to use your 3 fingers. Just tuck the end of the wool between your 3rd and 4th finger, like so. We're then going to loosely wrap the wool around our fingers. The more you wrap it, the more dense your pom-pom will be. Don't wrap it too tight that you cut off your circulation either. This is more than enough for the rabbit. I might take a few off, in fact. Now, we're going to cut the wool at the bottom, and that should just stay wrapped around your hand. Taking the crochet hook, we're going to insert it through any gap in our fingers you can find. We're going to hook the wool and pull it through that hole. We're then going to shimmy it up our fingers and pop it around the opposite hole, so you see it crosses now. Now this bit you have to be delicate while doing. We're going to hold the bit that we've just wrapped around nice and tight to the wool and take it off our fingers. Without moving the loops, we're now going to tie a knot which will wrap around the wool like so. Pull that nice and tight. We're now going to do another knot to make sure it doesn't come undone. Cut the wool, and you can always go and do more knots if you think it needs it. I'm going to go round and tie some on the other side. Once you're happy, you just have to work around and cut all of the loops of wool. Check they're all cut and find any which have slipped through somehow. And then, using the longer bit of string that is left from when you tied the knots, you're going to use that to put it on your bunny's back. I'm going to go slightly up the back so the tail doesn't stick out underneath the rabbit. Insert it a few stitches across, and then pull that wool through. Pulling that nice and tight, I'm simply going to use these 2 bits of string to tie another knot. going to try and move all of the bits of wool out of the way, and then pull it nice and tight. I'm going to tie another knot, and then probably a third one to ensure that it stays on the rabbit. This time you don't even have to worry about pulling the string in. You can just cut these two bits of string to blend in with the tail. Now we're going to just work around and neaten up the bunny's tail. Once you're happy with how it looks, the bunny is now complete. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. If you have, please hit that like button. It really helps me out as I'm offering you this free tutorial. I'd also love it if you subscribed so you could see my other tutorials and keep up to date. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.